Hi everyone, it's Eric Lalas. Today we're gonna study the King's Indian defense, which is a hyper-modern opening where black carefully allows white to control the center with his pawns, with the view to subsequently challenge it with moves like e5 or c5. Black immediately develops his knight to f6, c4, controlling the center with the pawns, g6, preparing to flank to his bishop, knight to c3, bishop to g7, white goes to e4, d6, preparing e5, knight to f3, black castles, bishop to e2, then e5, creating tension in the center. White castles, maintaining the tension, knight to c6, threatening the pawn at d4, white goes to d5, forcing black to play knight to e7. The knight doesn't have much play on e7, but it does support a future f5. Now white has a variety of moves including b4, knight to e1, and knight to d2 among others. Typically, white will try to attack on the queen side by preparing the pawn break c5, while black will attack on the king side by moving his knight on f6 to d7 or e8, and start a king side pawn storm with f5, f4, and g5. Let's take a look at b4. White begins the bayonet attack, pushing on the queen side as quickly as possible to counter black's king side expansion with f5, knight to h5, continuing on the king side, if a5, countering on the queen side, bishop goes to a3, pawn takes, bishop takes, knight to d7, a4, bishop to h6, and then white goes to a5. Going back to knight to h5, white answers with rook to e1, if f5, threatening the pawn at e4, knight to g5, holding the pawn, knight to f6, keeping the pressure, bishop to f3, if c6, preparing c5, then white answers with bishop to e3. Going back, if instead of going to f6, the knight goes to f4, the game may continue with bishop takes knight, pawn takes bishop, rook to c1, defending the knight, bishop to f6, threatening the knight, knight goes to e6, bishop takes, pawn takes, bishop takes knight, rook takes bishop, pawn takes, bishop to f1, attacking the pawn, e3, pawn takes, rook takes, c6, king to h1, and I'll just continue, d5, rook to f3, rook takes, and queen takes. Going back to the ninth move, we've just seen b4. Now we'll take a look at knight to d2. The knight is moving towards the queen side and supporting queen side attack. It also prevents knight to h5, because the queen and the bishop is aiming at h5 square, and after an eventual c5, the knight will settle on c4. Let's take a look at some possible continuation. If knight to e8, white continues on the queen side attack, while black continues his king side attack. c5, knight to f6, f3, f4, knight to c4, g5, and a4. And if knight to d7, white answers with b4, f5, bishop to a3, knight to f6, f3, bishop to h6, c5, check, and king to h1. And finally, let's take a look at a5. White answers with a3, knight to d7, rook to b1, f5, king side attack, b4, king to h8, preparing knight to g8, queen to c2, knight to g8, and f3.